Amy Skye and I Will Take Care of You. And Amy Skye is in our Toronto studio. I know what goes through my mind when I listen to that. Amy, what goes through yours?
Well, I think, I think of the real life events that inspired me to write the song. And I took a little poetic license with my own life to tell the story of the cycle of life. And the backdrop of that song was when my daughter Zoe was born in 1990. It was the year my dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And I was the first of my siblings to have a child. And so we all became the next generation the same year that we realized that my dad was going to be leaving us. And in fact, he died about 7 years later. And I've sung that song so many times and in concert and had the whole theater just weeping along with me. And I realized what a universal experience it is for us to, well, it's natural. It's the cycle of life. We pass the torch from one generation to the next. And what's amazing to me is how many people are grateful for the opportunity to cry and to process their grief at the loss of a parent. And at first, when I started performing that song, I thought people were going to be mad at me because they would cry, and they'd come up to me after the show and just thank me for the opportunity. I guess it became sort of a shared experience with all of us in the theater to just acknowledge, life brings us joy and sorrow simultaneously very often.
There are the lines, "Darling, I'm just as scared as you, but I promise you somehow." You have been very public about having dealt with postpartum depression. How does "I Will Take Care of You" relate to that experience?
Well, when I wrote the song, I guess Zoe was about 3 at the time that I wrote the song, and at that point I had recovered from my first experience with postpartum depression. And I wanted to write about the cycle of life, but I wanted to acknowledge that the very fact of becoming a mother is not necessarily, just a blithe passage for many women, and myself included. And those 2 lines that you just mentioned was my way of sort of acknowledging that it had been a real struggle for me, the whole postpartum period. And I didn't then actually really speak about it publicly till about a year ago. I had
tell me what happened. Yeah.
Well, I was performing at a fundraiser for the Mood Disorders Association of Ontario, and they didn't know about my history with postpartum depression. They just asked me to be the entertainment to distract them from their problems that night. But when I arrived, the whole tone of the evening was so lighthearted. In fact, the theme of the fundraiser was "Mad About You." And they were honoring people who had struggled with mood disorders and mental illness. And I was just taken aback. I was like, we can talk about this? This isn't a little skeleton we have to have rattling around in our closet. We can actually not just talk about it, but laugh about it. Humor is part of the recovery and dealing with it. So I decided when I performed my song to share with them that I myself had struggled with mood disorders, with postpartum depression.
This was completely spontaneous.
Completely spontaneous. It was after a whole evening, though, of people coming up to me and saying, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm bipolar. Hi, I'm so-and-so, and my mother's schizophrenic." I'm like, this is cocktail conversation now? I'm like, okay, I can do that. And I didn't know it was going to go any further than the evening, but there was a lot of people from the media there that night, and I was subsequently approached to, talk about my own experience. And I thought, you know what, if someone like me who's used to being in the spotlight and used to sharing the details of my life, if I can't be honest about this, how is it for the people that really are hiding it? How are they dealing with it? So I decided to be upfront about it.
So did it become the patter between songs?
That's interesting. I actually don't talk about... "I Will Take Care of You" is quite a layered story in the song. And I actually, in my concerts, don't really talk about the postpartum depression part, because most of the people that hear the song are relating to it on the level of having taken care of an elderly parent, which is sort of the primary point. But certainly in my interviews, and I've done a lot of media and television and radio and print, talking about the fact that postpartum depression is very under-discussed, it's under-researched, and women are undereducated about it. And the thing that amazes me, well, it doesn't amaze me because the same thing happened to me, is how many women went through it, had no idea they were going through it at the time, brushed it under the carpet, never talked about it. And it was kind of like a shameful little secret that they had.
How did you get through it?
Well, I was very lucky to have the support of both the first time that it happened, my husband, Mark, and my mother, Sandy, who was actually a psychologist who came back to LA with us. Zoe was born in Toronto, and then we went back to LA after 6 weeks, and I was just by then fully non-functional. And even though I'd been diagnosed by my doctor and he'd given me antidepressants, I was in denial. I was like, there's just no way. I don't feel depressed. If this is postpartum depression, this is not what I thought it was, because the sadness is what I associated depression with, and I didn't understand that the anxiety and the exhaustion and the hallucinations and the cognitive breakdown was all a part of it. And I just knew that I couldn't get out of bed. I nursed the baby and I slept, and I did that for 3 months, and kept waiting for it to pass, and did a lot of thinking about it and as much reading about it as I could. But it was really tough. It was scary.
How did you feel? I mean, alone?
I think I felt I didn't feel alone, because both Mark and my mom, who stayed with me for 3 months, were very supportive. And the thing about it too is it's very episodic. It's not like you are 24/7 in a black hole. You're maybe 23/7, You have points in the day when you kind of function and you kind of think, oh, well, I'm getting better now. And the thing is, you get better very slowly by degrees. And I felt a little betrayed, though, that I had been so underinformed about it. And all my friends who I then spoke to about it, most of them had experienced it to some degree. And I would say, well, why didn't you tell me this was a possibility? And every single one said, well, we didn't want to scare you. And when I meet a new mother, or mother-to-be, the first thing I say is, hey.
You scare them.
I scare them. I said, I don't want to scare you, but I just want you to know, if you don't feel like yourself after you give birth, please seek help. That is very normal. That is very normal, very common. But what's not a good thing to do is to ignore it, because it can definitely get out of control. It can recur. It recurred with me, with my second child, and it recurred many years later in the form of just a depressive episode. And that was the third time, was when I finally got therapy and antidepressants, which really taught me about how to prevent and how to keep from having depressive episodes happening. Once you've been in the hole, it is definitely waiting for you to fall down again.
How different was the birth of your second child, Ezra? What did you know to do this time around?
Well, I knew to book out for 6 weeks following the birth, for sure. I also got full-time help the second time. And the whole labor and delivery second time, I think most mothers will tell you, is so much easier on the body. So I didn't have a lot of the physical complications I'd had the first time, and that really helped. The first time it was really, it was exacerbated by, I'd had just a lot of difficulty recovering physically, and that in itself is very trying. I also had a midwife the second time who made helped me along with the whole process and made the delivery so much easier. So, and a lot of it was when I started having the same symptoms the second time, at that point I knew that they would pass. And I think what happens to a lot of women when you have these crazy thoughts is that it's compounded by the anxiety about the thoughts, and then which it turns into a spiral. And the second time I knew I would let the thoughts come and I would let them go, and I would say, okay, mine's falling apart. I would sort of be like what they call the witness. I would say, okay, that's crazy thinking, that's not right, and just go back to bed.
There's I think another reason, people don't want to scare you, right? But they also don't want to talk about their own guilt for not feeling absolutely rapturous and overjoyed at the birth of a child.
Absolutely. And you know what? They're two different things. I mean, I was thrilled to be a mother. I loved my child with every ounce of my brain when it was sane, and when it would slip into the distorted thinking, it doesn't change the way you feel. But there is a huge expectation on women to be these kind of Madonna-like, all-knowing, all nursing figures, and that is just not really the reality of it for many, many women.
How do you see the next stage of your career proceeding?
Well, I've had a very exciting thing happen this year, which is writing and producing Olivia Newton-John's new CD, Grace and Gratitude, which is available in the States at Walgreens and online at Walgreens, but not coming out in Canada till the new year. But musically, this CD is really where I want my writing to go for the foreseeable future. It is still dealing with the same kind of themes of spiritual growth and relationships, but we actually had an objective with the CD. It was created specifically for meditation, relaxation, and healing, and it is based on the sacred truths of the chakras. So there's a theme to the record. It explores all of the 7 chakras and the universal sacred truths that are also the same for the sacraments of Christianity and the 10 branches of the Kabbalist tree of life. So it's got a big mission statement, which is that music can lead to healing, spiritual growth and physical healing, and that the sacred truths which reflect the energy centers of the body are true not just for the Eastern wisdom, but for the Western religions as well. So we incorporated the Tibetan chants, Tibetan Buddhism, Japanese Buddhism, Hebrew prayers, words from the Latin Mass, words from St. Francis of Assisi. It's very ambitious, but it works just on the level of just listening as well and relaxation. And it was so rewarding on every level, on the writing, on the conceptual level, on the musical level, which it's kind of a sort of a world music and classically influenced sound. It's really a different sound.
Amy, we're heading into a newscast. So I just want to say I look forward to the further adventures of Amy Skye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure, Sheila.
Amy Skye in our Toronto studio. Her new CD is called Life Lessons. You're listening to Sounds Like Canada on CBC Radio One and Sirius 137, and we will be back after the news.